Hashem, today's Daf Yomi is Zevachim Daf Nun Gimel, Zevachim 53. We're going to start at the Mishnah on the bottom of Numbez. Numbez says the Mishnah, Chatos Atzibor V'Yachid, that there are communal sin offerings and there are individual sin offerings. Eoin Chatos Atzibor, these are the communal sin offerings. Sirei Rosh Chadashim, Mishamoados, on Rosh Chodesh, and on the festivals, you have to bring a sin offering, a communal sin offering. Shlitasan Safon. What are the halachos of these sin offerings? They're slaughtered in the north. Kibul damam b'klisharis b'tzafon. You receive the blood from the utensil in the north. V'daman ton arba matanos al arba karanos. And the Kohen who is involved in the service has to apply blood from this animal. He takes it with his finger. We'll see how he does it, and he applies it to the four, what's called horns of the altar. And in each of the four corners of the altar, there were these 1 amma by 1 amma by 1 amma blocks. Those are called the horns, and he would apply the blood to the horns of the altar. Ketzad, the one application to each of the horns. How would he do this? It says the Gemara, it says the Mishnah on top of Nun Gimel Amid Aleph. Allah. Kevesh, he would go up the ram. Upana was Sovev. Now, as he went up part of the way up the ram, there was a ledge that led him off the ram and led him to what was called the Sovev, which was a ledge underneath the top part of the altar that he could walk around it, and he would turn to the right. And Rashi says, because we have a concept called pinos, shata ponayahu derechim, any turns that you make have to be towards the right. So he would go up the ram, Pano Sovev, and would go to the Sovev, Balo Karen Dromis, Mizrachis. And when he went up to the Sovev, that would be, he would reach first. Because when he came into the Beis HaMikdash, he would be coming from when he came to the Azar, he'd be coming from the east, going towards the west. And then he'd have to walk towards the south to go up the ramp. And then he'd go up the ramp and he would turn to the right. And the first place he would come to would be the southeastern part of the ramp. And then he would apply the blood. And from there, we go to the Mizrachis, Tzefonis, to the northeastern part. Tzefonis Maravis. Then he would go to the northwest. And then Maravis Deromis. And then he would go to the southwest. Shiari Adam. And then the remnants of the blood, he would pour. He would then pour on the southwestern, on the southern part of the base, on the southern part of the altar where there was a base. And there, you see, there were two holes there that allowed the blood to go all the way down. We know from Masech HaSukkah that they cleaned it once every 80 years. And he would eat the meat inside the curtains. The curtains, there were no curtains in the Beis HaMikdash, but this is a reference back to the Mishkan when the courtyard of the temple was surrounded by curtains. And it was eaten by Lezichri Kahuna, by the male Kohanim, B'chol Ma'achal. They could eat it however, whichever type of cooking they wanted. Yom V'layla, and they had one day and that night, Ad Chatzot, only until midnight. Rashi says, really, biblically speaking, they had all night, but the rabbis made a geder. The rabbis, Rashi says, Siyag Asu Chacham. The rabbis made a fence for the Torah to distance somebody from the sin of kares. So Heichi Avid. So how would he actually apply the blood to the corners? Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Elazar Chad Amar. One was of the position no sein Ama Elech va'ama Elech. That what one position was that he would basically put it, the first position is that he would put the blood on the amma that's closest to the corner, on whichever side he wanted, and then he would go to the other one, and go to the next corner, he put it on the amma closest to he would put it on an amma close to the corner, also whichever side he wanted. And the other position is, good morning, Jeff, that he had to actually squeeze the blood and apply it on the corner of the angle itself and on the corner itself, of the Karen. So this is a dispute between Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Elazar. The Gemara and Rabbi Elazar. Gemara connects this to a different dispute. So we're on 53a, around 7 lines on the top. Again, what we're talking now, how do they apply the blood? One says they just have to put it within an amma of the Karen. The other one says no, they have to put it on the corner itself, on the actual corner. So the Gemara connects this to another dispute, which is an earlier dispute amongst the Tanaim. Was the blood actually placed on the Karen itself, or does it just need to be placed on the top half of the Mizbeach? So the Gemara says, Alibad Rebbe Elazar bar Reb Shimon. So according to Rebbe Elazar bar Reb Shimon, who says, Damar hiatzma in anasis al begufa shel Karen, he said, no, the blood had to be placed directly on the Karen. Kuliyamu pligi. Then Rabbi Yochanan and Rebbe Elazar would not be arguing. Why? Because it's clear that it's on the Karen, so it doesn't matter if it's on the amma next to the Karen or on the diagonal or on the corner itself. The only argument according to the position of Rebbe, who says it just has to be on the top half of the Mizbeach. Karen, one says it has to be just within an amma of the Karen. It has to be directly on the corner itself. Keneged chuda in, that would be what's called the Karen tefelo. But if it's more than that, it's not directly on the corner, it's not called part of the Karen. The Gemara challenges one of these opinions, and we'll see which one in a moment from the Brisa. The Brisa says, Meisvei chatas atzibor va'yachid. So let's say you have the communal sin offering and the individual sin offering. Ketzan matan taman. How would they apply their blood? Hayola kevesh. You would go up the ramp. Ponel esovev. You would turn onto the ledge. Ubalo Karen Dromis Mizrachis. You come to the southeastern corner. V'tovo be'etzbo yaminis. Hamiumenis shabiyamin. And you would dip your right finger, that's the index finger. Hamiumenis shabiyamin minadam shabimazreik. That you take it from the blood in the basin. V'chomer begodlo milamalo be'etzbo katana milamata. And you would squeeze out all the blood, like make it really concentrated, from using your thumb and your pinky, pressed against the index finger, and then what you would do is, and you would apply it, and then you would go and apply it opposite the sharp corner of the horn until all the blood was finished in the finger. And so to every single horn. So we see from here that the blood needs to be applied directly to the corner, not within an amma. So it's a question on the one who says it can be applied within the amma of the corner. The Gemara says, no. The Gemara says, this is all that price is saying, mitzvah b'chuda, that the ideal way to do it is to apply it on the corner. But the question is whether or not you could fulfill your obligation by just doing within an am of it. So that's a question, and that's a dispute between the Rabbi Yochanan and the Rabbi Elazar. So the Gemara says, okay, now that we mentioned this dispute of Rabbi and Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon, let's flesh it out. My Rabbi and my Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon. So what is their dispute? The Gemara says, the Tanya. So we have this dispute because what does it say? The Tanya, damim ha elyonim, the blood that goes above. There are two karbanos where the blood goes above. That is the chatas of an animal, chatas of a hema, and the ola of an oaf, and the ola of a bird. All the other karbanos, the blood is applied below the chutas sikra. The chutas sikra is the middle red line around the mizbeach in the base hamikdash. As we'll see in the Mishkan, there wasn't, according to most opinions, this chutas sikra. There was a different divider. So damim alyonim nisan mechutas sikra lamala, damim atachtonim, but the other bloods are placed in tanim mechutas sikra lamatan. So divrei Rebbe. So Rebbe's basic position is that the blood just needs to be applied above the chutas sikra, by the chatas of the animal. Whereas Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon Omer Bamed Varmamurin Ba'olas Ha'of. When do we say that it needs to just be applied on the top part of the altar? That's by the olah of a bird, of a bachatas behema. But if it be the sin offering of an animal, then excuse me, then it needs to actually be placed on the Karen itself, on the horn itself. It's El Al Gufa Shel Karen. So then the Gemara says, no, I sneezed, it was my place, but I'll get it, don't worry. I'm a Rabbi Avo, my time of the Rabbi. What's the basis for Rabbi's position that when you apply the blood of the chatos of an animal, it just needs to be placed on the top half of the altar, not actually on the Karen? What's the basis for Rabbi? My time of the Rabbi, and he quotes a pasuk from Ezekiel. Now we know that in Yechezkel talks about the building of the third base of Mikdash. This is the Mizbeach in the third base of Mikdash. It says V'harel Arba Amos, the Ha'arel, which is a reference to the Mizbeach. The Ha'arel is another word for the Mizbeach. Rashi says Mizbeach. Umeharel Wamala Arba Amosu, and it says from the Harel and above is Arba Amos. Meaning to say that the pasuk states in Ezekiel, Me'arel Arba Amos, Me'arel Lamala Hakronos Arba. So the Harel itself is Arba Amos, and and from the Harel above was 4 Amos. So and Amar. So we see from here. The Gemara asked the question: Arba Amos Udahavi, was the Harel itself only 4 Amos? We know that from other sources that Yechezkel's Mizbeach was 10 Amos high. 10 Amos is very high. It's 15 Amos. But so why? How can you say it's 4 Amos high? So Amar of Adabar Abba Makom Akronos Arba, that the place where the horns would take up on the altar is 4 Amos. Makom Kronos Arba Havi, but that Gemara says we know that the Makom of the Kronos is not 4. They really are only 2 Amos in every direction. This is the way the Gemara calculates it, that it was 2 by 2. Ela Ema Rishus Kronos Arba. So what it means is that you had this space to place 4 Amos, meaning the Karen itself was 1 Amma, and then underneath it was 4 Amos. So therefore, that's a source of Rebbe's idea that you could place it in the top half of the Mizbeach, the blood. Rishus Kronos Arba, the permission to place it is 4. Tanan Asam. So now the Gemara cites a Mishnah in Midos. The halachos of the measurements of the second base of Mikdash are described in Midos. The first base of Mikdash measurements are described in Book of Kings. The second is in Midos, the third in Ezekiel, and the Mishkan is in the Torah. So Tanan Asam, Chut shel Sikra, the chut of the Sikra, the red line, Chogro be'emtza, was a belt around the middle. To distinguish between the upper blood, the chatas ha'of, the chatas behim, and the os ha'of, the dam matachtonim, and the lower blood. Minani, what's the source? Because it says about the Mishkan, that there was a mesh divider until at the midway point. The Torah made in the Mishkan a divider to divide between the upper bloods and the lower bloods. Shiare Adam, the rest of the blood was then poured when the Kohen got off. He poured the blood on the base on the southern on the southwest. There was a yesod there. So Tanur Rabbanan, we learned it says Shir Damai Shofachal Yesod Dromis, to the southern base, which was in the west. So the Gemara says El Yesod, the Bryce says El Yesod Mizbeach, Ze Yesod Dromi. He pours it to the southern base. Atomer Ze Yesod Dromi, Hu Ela Eno El Yesod Marabi. Maybe he pours it on the western base. There were 2 sides of the altar that had complete bases on them, the north and the west, and the south and the east just had a little part. So on the northeast there was, and on the southwest. So we had said, I think it was yesterday or the day before, that when the Kohen came out of the sanctuary, he poured it on the western base. So maybe that's where he's supposed to pour. Why are we saying he pours it on the southern base? So the Gemara says, it doesn't say anything in the pasuk here. Maybe learn out from where it's explicit. And it's explicit that you have to pour it when he comes out of the sanctuary from the inner offerings. He pours it on the western base. because it says because it says Asher Pesach Ol Moed. So that's the Meforish in the pasuk. So the Gemara says Amris Yoma Yerida so Min HaKevesh Yitziasa Min HaHeichel. No, we're going to compare it to just when he comes down from the Kevesh to when he departs from the sanctuary. Meaning to say, hold on, just like when he departs from the sanctuary, the first place he hit is the western side of the altar, and therefore he pours it there. So too, when he departs from the Kevesh, the first place he hits is the southern side of the altar, and so that's why he pours it there. So the Gemara says, okay, Tanya Rabbi Shmuel Omer. So now we have a brayso which says, which argues with our Mishnah. Remember, our Mishnah says he pours the blood on the southern side. So, but we have a brayso that says Rabbi Shmuel says Zev Zeh Yisod Maravi. Both the chatos penimios and also these chatos that are brought outside, he pours the blood on the western side of the altar. Rabbi Shimon Yochai Omer Zev Zeh Yisod Dromi. Both on the southern side. Both Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Shimon Yochai are arguing with our Mishnah, which our Mishnah says that when you come out of the chatos penimios, you pour it on the western side, and the chatos tzibor and the chatos yachid, you pour on the southern side. So they're both arguing with our Mishnah. Kasavar, he's up. When Gemara says Bishlam Amanda Amar Yisod Maravi, it makes sense according to Rabbi Shmuel. It says both sides are on the western side. Kasavar Yom Hatzasam and first, he says, well, this case by the individual sin offering is not explicit, so we learn it from the inner chatos, where it's explicit. Amanda Amar Yisod Deromi, but according to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, it says both of them are poured on the southern side. Ma'itana, so Amar Rabbi Asi Kasavar Haitana Kul Mizbeach Tzapakar. In the essence, he's not arguing, but he's saying that when you walk into the courtyard, the whole altar would actually be in the northern side, past the midway point, and it'll all be, if you're facing towards the sanctuary, it would be all on your right, on the northern side. And therefore, when he comes out, that's the first thing when he would come out from the Chatos Penimis, when he come out of the Ulam, he would actually be facing the first place he'd hit would be the southern side of the altar. Another way of saying it is that the whole entrance from the entrance to the Ulam, or the exit from the sanctuary, was all immediately in the southern side of the courtyard. Tanan the Bei Rabbi Shmuel, the Tanan the Bei Rabbi Shmuel taught on the top of Nun Gimel Beis to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. The Tanan Bei Rabbi Shmuel said that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai actually said Zev Zeh Yisod Maravi. He said like him that not both and both are in the south, but both are in the west. V'simaneich mashlu gavre legavra. And the way you remember this is the people, the men, drew the gavra to them. Meaning to say, Rabbi Shmuel's academy was able to convince Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai that it wasn't both and both on the south, but it was both and both on the west. Up to the next Mishnah. Ola Kodshe Kadashim. The Ola is an example of Kodshe Kadashim. It's the holies of the sacrifice. What does that mean? Rash gives us examples of what this means. So it's disqualified if it would go out of the courtyard of the temple, and also if somebody was a Tvul Yom, somebody who immersed that day, it wasn't yet night, or Mechus or Kaparim, we still need the carbon if they touched it. And also you have Me'il on it before the blood was sprinkled, even before the blood was sprinkled. So Ola Kache Kadashim, Shlitas of Asafim. It had to be slaughtered in the north. V'kibel Dama B'kli Sharis B'Safim. And also the blood was received in the northern part of the courtyard. V'dama Ta'un, Shtei Matana Shehin Arba. We'll have to see what this means in the Gemara. The blood was applied with two applications that are four. Utu'una Havshe V'nituach V'kalil La'ishin. And also it requires the animal need to be skinned and chopped up and then entirely burnt on the fire. So it says the Gemara, first of all, why does our Mishnah only say about the Ola that's Kachi Kachim? It's not the only thing that's Kachi Kachim. Also the Chatas and the Asham are Kachi Kachim. The Chatas is same halacha that it's Kachi Kachim. So why does it only say by the Ola? Well, Ola, my time, Matana like Kachi Kachim. Why is the Ola called Kachi Kachim? Mishum the Loksiv Ba Kodesh Kodashim. because it does not say about it Kodesh Kodashim He, Kodesh Kodashim He. Mean to say it says by the Chatas and the Asham Kodesh Kodashim He, but it doesn't say that about the Oah. So therefore, explicit in the text of the Torah. So therefore, our Mishnah has to specify that the Oah is also Kodesh Kodashim. So the Gemara says, "V'dama ton shtei matanos." The blood application of the Oah requires 2 matanos. What does this mean? How do you apply these 2 matanos that are 4, these 2 applications that are 4? First of all, we have here, okay, we're going to see we have something very special here. We have a diagram by Rashi, but we'll get to that in a little bit. But first, let's go through the text. So what are the 2 applications that are 4? Hechi Avid, Amarav Nasan, Choser v'nosein. That knows, he says nosein v'choser v'nosein. So what does that mean? It means that he would place some blood from the utensil on one of the sides of the horns, the choser v'nosein, and then he would go and place it on the other side of that horn. And basically, and thus he would also do it on the horn that's diagonal from it. So it means he went to 2 of the corners, but he placed it on all 4 sides, on either side of the horns. So, and so therefore went on all 4 sides of the altar. Ushmo Amar Matana Achas Kamin Gamma Nosein. The Gamma is a Greek letter where it basically takes up 2 sides. It's like a final chaf. So it's basically he would throw the blood in such a way that it went on both sides. That's how he applied it, that it would extend from one side to the other. It would be 2 applications, but it would end up on 4. So one opinion is that he actually applied it 4 times. One is that he applied it twice, but it went on all 4. So the Gemara says, Kitanai, let's say that this is a machokes among the Tanaim. I might think that you only apply 1 application for the Olah. Tamomer Saviv says around. I might think you draw it all the way around the altar like a thread. Tamomer Vizarko. No, you throw it. Okay, tzad kamin gamma, shtei matana shein ara. So the first approach is you throw like the Greek letter gamma, which is 2 that are 4. Rabbi Shmuel says, no, nemar kan saviv, nemar la'alon saviv. It says here by the Oah, saviv. And also it says by the chatos amiluim. It says in Parashat Tzav, it says al karnas hamizbeach saviv. Ma'alon, just like by the chatos, pisuk va'arba matanos. Now you place it down and you stop each time and you do 4 separate applications. Avkan pisuk va'arba matanos. So here too, you place it down in 4 separate applications. The Gemara says ima la'alon arba matanos al arba kronos. Well, maybe like over there, it's 4 applications on 4 horns, on the 4 corners. Avkan, arba matanos al arba kronos. Maybe also here, it's the 4 applications on the 4 horns. Amras, no, we're not going to say that. It's impossible to say it goes on all 4 corners. Why? Ola tu'una yesod, that we established yesterday, that the Ola requires to be placed 2 days ago and also yesterday. The Ola requires to be placed opposite the Yesod, Keneged HaYesod. The Karen Mizrachas Stromis, and on the southeastern part of the Mizbeach, Lo Hayala Yesod. There was no Yesod there. We said, as I said earlier, there's the Yesod is the base. There's a full base along the entire north, the entire west, and then it extends 1 amma on the southwest side and 1 amma on the northeast side. But the southeast corner has no base. And so therefore, it has to be different from the chatas because you can't put it on those corners. My time. So the Gemara says, okay, now we ask a question. We're going to start the sugya. It's a very deep ideas here, so maybe we'll say some of it today, and maybe who knows what will happen tomorrow. But my time, and what's the reason that there is no southeastern corner on the altar? By the way, the Rashi, if you have the printed text of the Gemara here, on the bottom left corner, Rashi has a diagram, and you can see the diagram, and we'll see what that means in a moment. But the diagram is situated differently than we would draw something. Nowadays, when we draw a map, we draw the north on top and the south on the bottom and the east on the right and the west on the left. But if you see at this map, we have the west on the top and the east on the bottom. They would actually, the map works very well for walking into the Beis Hamikdash. You walk in towards the west. So, okay, so what happened? Amar Rebbe Lazar, because this part of the altar was not in the possession of the Torah. Who's the Torah? The Torah is a reference to Benjamin, because first of all, we say Benjamin is Benjamin Zev Yitrof. Benjamin is a tearing wolf, and here he's tearing. He wants to grab away the portion of Judah. So if you look in, you see Benjamin has the north. The temple area was divided. The temple area was divided between Benjamin and Judah. So everything to the west and to the north was Benjamin's, and to the east and to the south was Judah's in the temple area. So what happened was the hold on. Right. So what happened was that Benjamin, this portion of the altar, the eastern and the southern part was not in the territory of Benjamin. Amar Rav Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak, Mizbeach ochel b'chelkol shel Yehuda Amma, that the portion went into Judah's portion. The altar went in one amma on the south into Judah's portion, and so therefore this amma, which was the place where they were supposed to be, the southeastern base, and so therefore, since it needed to be in the portion of Benjamin, there was no yesod there, because there was no base there, because that was the territory of Judah. And Amar Rabbi Levi bar Chama bar Chanina, Ritzua hayta yotze mechalkol shel Yehuda. Judah had a strip that went out from his territory, v'nichneset bechalko shel Binyamin, and it went into the portion of Benjamin. Benjamin at Tzaddik. Benjamin is one of the few people who was called a Tzaddik. So Benjamin at Tzaddik, he was very upset about this, that he didn't have the whole area in his property, the whole Mizbeach. Every day he was upset about it, to take it. I believe actually the same word mitzvah for a mitzvah actually appears, if anybody's looking for a beautiful Dvar Torah for this week's parasha, you could, the same word appears at the beginning of our parasha in the Rashi, that it says about he says, it says about here, it says that Avram was sitting there at the entrance at the heat of the day. God brought out the sun from its sheath so as not to disturb the guests, because he saw that Abraham was so upset, he was in distress, that guests weren't coming. That's why God brought the angels. Also over here, it says that Benjamin was mitzvah b'kol yom. He was upset about it every day, that he didn't have the whole mizbeach in his portion. And so he was upset to take it, as it states. Chofeifa of kol hayom. And Rashi says that it's like a person who's anxious, even though chofeif really means to hover, it means Benjamin was anxious about it all day. But fikach, because he was so mitzvah to do a mitzvah, he was so anxious, preoccupied to do the mitzvah, zacha Binyamin tzaddik v'nasa ushpizchan la'kodesh baruch hu. Therefore, Binyamin tzaddik merited, and he became the host for God, meaning the Aron, the ark, was in the Holy of Holies, which was in Benjamin's territory, as it says, u'bein tefav shachay. Anyway, that's obviously a very powerful piece. There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to talk about in the stuff. We just did it surface because it's the daf yomi. A big shikoyach to everybody.